Hey guys, so today I wanted to share with you 5 myths about growing long hair or how to grow long hair. Some of these I've touched on already. I have kind of done a similar video, but it was more about natural hair, but this time it is more going to be focused on length and growing out long, healthy hair. Okay, just because I always get asked about what lipstick I'm using in the videos, I just want to share with you really quickly. This is a lip lacquer from e.l.f. And this is in the color Tea Rose. This is the gloss that I have on right now. Well, it's a lip lacquer. It's supposed to be like a liquid lipstick, but not matte, if that makes sense. So I absolutely love this. Great stuff. Okay, so number one. Now, number one is getting regular trims. I do know of some girls that religiously trim their hair every other month. They regularly are getting their hair trimmed. They never miss a trim, thinking that it's going to make their hair grow so fast and so long. The reason why this is a myth is because basically you just need to cut off the dead ends. And if you're doing a good job at retaining your length, taking care of those ends, making sure those ends are moisturized, they're not going to keep splitting, and there's no point. At that point, you're just cutting inches off if you don't need them. So I'm not saying to don't ever trim your hair. I'm not saying don't, I just don't feel as though it's necessary to trim your hair every other month or every month to try to get your hair to grow out longer, because I think to some point, it's not really going to help out at all. Anything, you're cutting off ends that don't need to be cut, and you could be growing your hair out longer. You're cutting your inches off, if that makes sense. So next, I've touched on this before, but I think it still needs to be said, and this is all of those products that claim to fix your split ends, that mend your split ends, that erase your damage, blah, 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 whatever. That stuff is basically a gimmick. That is basically a marketing scheme, false advertisement. It is really impossible to mend your split ends. You can't mend your split ends. Once they're split, they're split. Once it's damaged, it's damaged. The only way you can fix that is if you cut those ends off or cut the damaged pieces out. You can't mend your split ends. Generally, those products contain a lot of wax or like petroleum or mineral oil or things that aren't as beneficial to your hair. All they do is coat the hair and make it appear that they are mended. Okay, next is protective styling. So in my experience, I don't find that protective styling is very beneficial unless you are moisturizing your hair underneath your protective style. If you're taking care of your protective style, then yeah, it's going to definitely help you retain length. But if it's not, and you're not moisturizing, you could just be damaging your hair. If your braids are too tight, you could be pulling at the roots, breaking your ends, breaking your edges. So you really need to be really mindful about what protective style you're doing and still take care of your hair while you are protective styling. Next, I don't really want to talk too much about this, and I haven't talked much about it on my channel for a reason, and this is using protein. Protein is I feel like such a big topic, and everybody is trying to do protein treatments, DIY protein treatments to really nourish their hair, but it can be kind of dangerous using protein in your hair. A lot of times after you use protein, if you don't need it, your hair becomes extremely stiff and you can experience breakage after using a protein treatment. And personally, I don't recommend doing protein treatments unless you are 100% sure that your hair needs it. So like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but do your research beforehand before you try something like protein treatments. Last, this is something that I refuse to continue to promote. If you guys noticed, I haven't promoted this in a very long time, and that's hair growth pills. So I have promoted some here and there, but overall I don't feel as though they are necessary. I believe that it is honestly kind of gimmicky. I don't think that they are necessary for hair growth. I've talked about this before. Hair growth comes down to your genetic makeup, and taking some pills to increase your hair growth rate really isn't going to do much. So I've touched on before, there is definitely a cheaper alternative to hair growth pills. I have used hair growth pills specifically from the drugstore when I was trying to grow my hair out really long, and it worked 100%, and it was 10 times cheaper than what you're seeing on Instagram or what these other YouTubers are promoting. I don't want to bash any companies or bash anything that is, you know, believes that is like the truth, but in my experience I don't find that it's necessary. I will link down below more information if you're curious about that. If you want to know exactly what pills I used, I will also link those down below. But like I've stated before, it's so important to do your research before you really buy into and spend your money and put your health at risk for other type of hair growth pills. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them down below. Next week I have some really exciting videos for you guys, so make sure to stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next video. Bye.